The boom came first, a violent, gut-punching crack that split the pre-dawn hush and tore Ayanna from sleep before she even understood what pain had followed it. She lurched upright on the straw mattress, heart slamming, breath shredding in her chest. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The cabin walls felt foreign, the darkness too thick, the cold air too sharp. But then the silence after the blast settled over her, eerie and unnatural, and she knew instantly that something outside had gone very, very wrong. She stumbled to the door, bare feet skimming the rough wood planks, and yanked it open. The horizon was still bruised blue, waiting for a sun not yet willing to rise. At first, she saw nothing but the warped shadows of cottonwoods. Then she noticed Mika, her younger sister, kneeling beside the corral gate, shoulders shaking, fingers curled around something limp on the ground. Ayanna's stomach dropped. She started forward, the frigid air biting her skin as she crossed the yard. Mika didn't turn when she approached. She didn't need to. Ayanna could feel the grief emanating from her like heat from a dying fire. When she finally looked down, she saw the stallion, their father's last gift before he vanished a year ago. The horse lay still, muzzle crusted with frost, a red hole staining the dirt beneath its neck. Ayanna swallowed a sound that rose like smoke from her chest. Who did this? Her voice came out rough, too small for the wound in front of them. Mika wiped her cheeks with the back of her wrist. Tracks everywhere. Someone drove him out of the corral. Someone wanted us to hear it. Ayanna knelt, placing her palm on the stallion's still warm shoulder. She felt Mika's fear, but beneath it pulsed something sharper, something dangerous, fury, barely leashed. She understood it. Ever since their father disappeared, the sisters had lived under a cloud of whispered threats and half-truths, warnings from neighbors who said they should leave the valley before trouble caught up. But they had stayed. Because their father had stayed. Because someone had to hold the line he'd drawn. "It's Elias," Mika said suddenly. "He came by yesterday, asking again if we'd seen anything, any riders, any strangers passing through." She bit her lip. He looked spooked. Elias, the only rancher who still checked on them. Elias, who left carved cedar figures at their door every winter without signing his name. Ayanna felt that strange tightening in her ribs again, the one that made it hard to breathe whenever she tried to decide whether he was an ally or an omen. She stood, brushing dirt from her palms, and scanned the tree line. Every shadow felt watchful. "What did he say exactly?" she asked. Mika shook her head. "Not much. Just that he'd heard men asking about father again. Men who didn't sound like they were looking to help." Ayanna felt the cold sink deeper into her skin, settling like a verdict. She didn't know what frightened her more, that someone was hunting her father, or that someone believed the sisters still meant something to him. Either way, the message was clear: they weren't safe here. Not anymore. "We need to tell Elias what happened," Mika whispered. "Not yet," Ayanna replied quickly. "If he's already in danger because of us, going to him now," she trailed off, unable to finish. The truth was too heavy to say aloud. Mika stood slowly, arms wrapped around herself. "So what do we do?" Ayanna didn't answer at first. She stared down at the stallion, at the ruin of what had been the last untouched part of their old life. Something fractured inside her, but beneath the break was a new clarity, quiet, cold, and certain. "We watch," she said. "We listen. And we wait for whoever did this to make their next mistake." Mika nodded, though uncertainty trembled in her gaze. Ayanna stepped closer and rested a hand on her shoulder. "We won't face this blind. Not again." For a moment, they simply stood together in the bruised light, two silhouettes bracing against a morning that felt heavier than any before it. Then, from somewhere beyond the ridge, another sound drifted through the darkness, soft this time, almost thoughtful. Ayanna froze. Mika's breath hitched. It wasn't a gunshot. It wasn't an animal. It was a whistle. A signal. And it was meant for them. Boom tore through the quiet morning when Elias returned to the ranch to find the sheriff's riders kicking down his barn door, their shouts slicing the air like jagged steel. He froze at the sight, panic surging through him as he imagined Wapika trapped inside, still fragile from the terror of the night before. The riders didn't know she was there, but they were hunting someone, anyone, who didn't belong. Their orders were pitiless. Their timing was lethal. Elias dismounted before the dust settled, shouting for them to stop, trying to mask the tremor in his voice with the authority of a landowner defending his property. But his words scattered uselessly in the commotion. One of the men raised a torch to peer into the shadows, and Elias felt his stomach plunge. Wapika, hidden behind the stacked crates he had shown her hours earlier, was close enough to be exposed by a careless tilt of flame. Desperation churned inside him. He stepped forward, forcing a laugh, pretending he had lost a calf in the barn and didn't want strangers spooking his livestock. The lie was thin, his smile thinner, but anything was better than watching her dragged out by men who saw her people as threats rather than human beings. He needed seconds, just seconds, for her to stay unseen. Then, from inside the barn, a soft thud echoed. It was small, barely audible beneath the snorting horses and heavy boots, but it slammed straight into Elias's chest. The sheriff's deputy snapped his head toward the sound. Elias reacted before thought could catch him, stumbling deliberately against a fence post, knocking it over with a loud crash. The distraction worked. Everyone turned toward him, swearing at his clumsiness. Inside that stolen moment, Wapika slipped farther into safety, or at least out of the torch's reach. Elias caught only the faintest shift of her shadow, but relief washed through him so fiercely he had to steady himself. The deputy scowled and called off the search, muttering about wasted time. One by one, the riders mounted up, leaving Elias with a warning about harboring troublemakers. Their hooves thundered away, but the fear they stirred lingered like smoke long after the dust began to settle. Elias approached the barn when silence finally reclaimed the yard. His heartbeat hammered like a fist against his ribs. Wapika stepped out slowly, her posture coiled tight, her breath shallow. He saw the exhaustion etched across her face, the kind that came from running too long without safety, from hiding so much of herself just to survive another sunrise. He told her what the riders believed, what they wanted, and why they would return if they sensed even a whisper of her presence. She listened with a stillness that felt like a storm gathering its strength, her eyes dark with memories she never spoke aloud. Elias felt the weight of his own choices pressing down, how he had crossed an invisible line by helping her, how he couldn't uncross it even if he tried. But she didn't blame him. Instead, she asked why he risked anything at all. Her voice was soft but steady, not accusing, only searching. Elias struggled for an answer that reached deeper than instinct or decency. He told her he didn't want her hunted, didn't want her alone, didn't want fear defining every step she took on land that should have offered more than danger. He didn't confess everything, not yet, but enough truth trembled through his words to make her look away. He stepped closer, his voice low but unwavering, telling her she wasn't running anymore and she wasn't leaving alone. Before she could argue, he revealed what the riders had dropped, a warrant naming her tribe, not her actions, as the reason she was to be seized on sight. The cruelty of it cracked the last barrier between them. Wapika stared at the paper, grief tightening every line of her face, and Elias knew the path ahead would be hunted, harsh, and unforgiving. But he also knew he had made his choice long before she ever asked why he cared. And as the night wind swept across the ranch, carrying the last traces of the riders' dust, she whispered only one question, one that changed everything. She waited for him.